enterprise workflow and process automation with SharePoint, Office 365, and our partner Nintex. So usual sort of housekeeping and upfront stuff. A little bit about Gig Werks. Gig Werks has been a Microsoft Gold partner since 2001. We bear the distinction of being virtual technology specialist for Microsoft's enterprise group here in New York, and have won a boatload of awards, as well as Nintex awards. And we have a very long and deep history within professional services in general, and Office 365 and SharePoint as a focus for a decade now. And within that journey, we've become very, very hard and fast Nintex partners, serving on their advisory board, working with their technical team to help bring innovation to market. So we have a number of packaged solutions. Our premium advisory services, and particularly very relevant now as a lot of people are moving to the cloud. So many of the customizations that were built on-prem have to be rebuilt as modern apps or with Nintex, and we can absolutely help you with both, as well as sort of just general SharePoint guru on demand. We also have workshops around SharePoint and Office 365, business solution planning, and of course a number around Nintex itself. Our Nintex Workflow Quick Start, which is a contextualized, hands-on training and configuration workshop. Our compliance approval and Workflow Quick Start, SharePoint monetization assessment, and then a whole bunch of other stuff that if you're kind enough at the end to fill out the survey, happy to send your way, as well as today's link to the webcast. So Workflow has been near and dear to Gig Werks for a very long time. A lot of our early and large commission of work was around very complex workflows, which we've always had particular forte around. And Workflow has been a long component within SharePoint itself. I've made the argument on many occasions that really all collaboration is, at the end of the day, is workflow. And workflows, they automate and manage business processes. They give you visibility. They ensure consistency and reliability with inside the organization. SharePoint itself, lists, libraries, tasks, email, InfoPath, all interact with Workflow. But Workflow is really the heart and soul of efficiency and brings together disparate processes and connects departments, people and processes, which is really, again, what I think at the heart of collaboration is about. So you have choices out there in Office 365 on-prem, but with so many people moving to the cloud, talking about your choices as it relates there, they're somewhat limited. There's Microsoft Flow, which is interesting. It's new, but it's not very powerful. It's reusable, it's simple, but it's not something that you would build enterprise processes around. And then your other choice out there is SharePoint Designer, which is very limited, again, in sort of the complexity of workflows that you can achieve. And so this leads to why third-party applications. Third-party applications really bridge that gap. You have features that don't exist out of the box. You don't want to reinvent the wheel, and you want that speed to market, that scalability. Very frequently, you have to satisfy regulatory requirements and compliance. And this is, in general, what third parties bring to the table. And in particular, Nintex really helps clients achieve this digital transformation to get closer to customers, drive efficiency, agility, and to be competitive and profitable, right? Now, to really underscore Nintex and its value in the marketplace, Jeff Taper, the godfather of SharePoint, as he's referred to in the industry, actually was a keynote speaker at Nintex's conference just recently, I think back in February. And, as you look at Workflow and Designer, you go, well, why Nintex? Microsoft itself really turns to Nintex, because what they understand is that there are huge advantages to Office 365, but the ability to build complex workflows off of that platform, because it's a multi-tenant situation, is really very constrained. And for heterogeneous to become the new homogeneous, for Office 365 and Microsoft to succeed, they have to connect Salesforce and a whole bunch of other information if they want to drive utilization of their cloud platform. And so Nintex, Forms, Workflow, Hawkeye, just a great and expanding suite of services. Nintex is a no-code solution. It's highly reusable. You have templates, certainly a right pane traditionally in SharePoint, but particularly in the cloud. And the fact that you can reuse entire workflows, part of workflows, just deploy over this workflow you built in one site collection to another, really is quite powerful. And you can build very, very, very complex workflows, again, without custom code, and to make them available in both on-premise, hybrid, and in the cloud. The ability to reduce the time in IT. IT has enough to do. Budgets are always challenged out there, right? And so with that, Nintex has this enormous amount of market value, as is recognized by Microsoft, and they were Microsoft's Partner of the Year last year globally. So the workflow for Office 365, really a big part of this is, of the value proposition, is the ability to connect to all these disparate cloud and on-premise services. But they ship with just an ever-expanding universe of connectors that allow you to bring in Yammer, Box, Amazon services, provision, user accounts, and in AD and Exchange, all connected in this virtual cloud world in which we increasingly live. And so with this, you get hundreds of actions that are pre-built, help you really drive the sharing and collaboration around documents and tasks and activities, and it just provides a seamless connection to other cloud-based services so that you can have a single powerful user experience with a high ROI to connect this increasingly expanding universe of services. And so I'm not going to read the slide at you. Again, we'll send it to you. But this is just a quick snapshot of the many other services Nintex brings to bear to connect for your enterprise. And so as you look at, there's sort of no end to where automation and workflow come into play. Auditing and compliance, especially here in New York with our financial services and pharma and other related clients, Nintex really drives that ability to have a full audit trail of the creation of content, its approval processes, and some just quick examples like pre-trade clearance workflows, expense approvals, accounts receivable, leave requests. Again, a long list that I won't read at you, but just a quick snapshot of things that you just find are common to every business out there that Nintex brings unique value in the way it addresses it. So now, as Nintex expands its offerings, there's Nintex Hawkeye. And a traditional challenge for IT has always been, I have this phrase that you only are aware of your IT department when something goes wrong and you yell at them. And it's always been a challenge for our IT sponsors to really easily show the value of their hard work back to the organization. And Hawkeye really helps in a huge way to understand the value of what you've designed and brought to your enterprise. So Hawkeye gives you not only the traditional sort of telemetry around, how many workflows are running and all that IT-centric stuff, but it also allows you to start to understand and analyze the consequence and impact of workflows from a business perspective in your organization. So if you have workflows that are managing contracts, the ability to quickly visualize where those contracts are, their priority. You'll see other examples around, for instance, expense reports. So it would be nice to know what the common costs are by geo and who's using it the most and where's your money going. These are important metrics from a business perspective that Hawkeye just effortlessly delivers to IT so they can bring it back to the business and really quickly show that value. Something particularly important to us and we think has just enormous and endless savings, particularly for professional services institutions that generate a lot of documents. You take insurance and underwriting and all these kind of things. Nintex document creation is this really very powerful solution where you fill out a form and decisions are made via workflow that then bring together information that resides in SAP or CRM, in text and data being kept inside SharePoint to automatically create a document. And then as you take it through its full life cycle, you have an audit trail of where all that content was sourced. It's bulletproof in its repeatability and its efficiency. And again, you can audit it all the way through, create that content, go through an approval process, show that you did your due diligence, and then send it out through their DocuSign connector action, end to end. And so for anyone, any company that's producing a lot of documents and, again, compliant, critical documents, notifications for doctors and pharmacists, et cetera, and so forth, this is a very powerful and ever increasingly powerful solution that is of particular interest and skill set within our firm. In fact, Gig Werks had the privilege of working with the design team at Nintex over the last year or two to help bring some additional features to market. And everything I just said, I just showed you on this slide. And again, we'll distribute this to you at the end of today's webcast. So with that, and without much more ado, I give you Sean from Nintex, who will now give you a demonstration.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. So Nintex is available on SharePoint for 2013, 2016, 2010, even 2007, and definitely SharePoint Online. But what we're looking at right now is a SharePoint 2016 instance, and I want to show you how easy it is to actually bring up the Workflow Designer canvas and interact with the Workflow Designer canvas to start building out these complex solutions. Because just because you have a complex solution doesn't mean it should be complex to actually build it. So all within the browser, what we'll do is we'll go over to Workflow Settings and open up the Nintex Workflow Designer canvas. And so what you'll see when it first loads up is that we'll actually have a blank canvas, a host of connectors on the left-hand side, core, and also connectors to connect to third-party services like Joe was speaking of, and a whole host of settings that you can configure up top. So to the left, some of the actions I'd like to draw to your attention are assigning flexi task. And so how would I actually bring that over to workflow? Well, it's just easy enough as drag and drop onto the workflow canvas itself, and then double click on the action to configure that. So it's just that simple to start building out that business process. Now, as Joe said, workflows and business solutions aren't always simple as just getting someone to approve a task. Sometimes you have to make connections out to external services. And so to do that within SharePoint, we make that very, very easy. There's an additional tab on the left-hand side called Connectors. Just click on that, and what you'll see is a whole host of different connectors that we can join to. You'll see ones for Dynamics CRM, Microsoft Azure, LinkedIn, Facebook, Exchange Online. All these are easily configured in your workflow by simple drag and drop. So what we can do real fast is let's go and build out a workflow for leave approval request. And so the first thing we want to do is say, all right, let's send out an email to the initiator of the workflow. And so what I want to do is send a notification, drag and drop, drag and drop, assign a task, and then what I can do again to make it even faster is just paste the send notifications to let the initiator know if it's been approved or rejected. Now, a simple workflow like this isn't going to stay simple for long. More often than not, business processes have to be updated and get new requirements sent into them, and so that will require some dynamic logic applied to it. Nintex makes that easy by giving you a host of actions under logic and flow. And so if HR came back to us for this leave request and said, hey, we want to be able to approve it if somebody chooses leave without pay, we need to get an additional level of approval here, but it's based conditionally on the type of leave that's selected, we can do that easily. So what I'll do is I will go and grab a run if action and place that under the approved branch, and then assign an additional task to send an additional task to HR. So how do we actually know what we're connecting to? Well, if I double click on the run if action, that'll bring up a configuration screen. And here we can actually point at that metadata that we're collecting from an end user, from an additional system, and be able to use that to help drive our business process. So particularly we'll want to look at leave type, and say if it equals leave without pay, and then we just build out a condition within our workflow and are able to execute this nested action only if this condition is met. But we don't have to just be limited to a simple workflow like this. We can actually expand it to more complex workflows. So what we can take a look at is, let me minimize this screen, I apologize, a contract request workflow. And so now in this workflow, what we're doing is we're actually going to leverage some additional capabilities of the Nintex platform, just like Hawkeye, what Joe spoke of before, and to collect bits of data in this business process and be able to report on that and feed that data up to a dashboard. And so what we see here are just some of the same type of actions that we had before, such as send notification, another logic one such as switch. But here's this one action. It's called contract draft. And what this is this is a beacon, and beacons are used within Nintex Hawkeye. And so let's expand this section. You can see beacon, beginning beacon, and ending beacon. These allow you to create stages, so you can determine a particular stage within this business process to collect data. And then you can also use the regular beacon action, like what we're using towards the bottom, to collect data at certain milestones within the workflow and the business process. So if we take a look, we can set the contract type. We can start collecting data in the beacon, and in this one what we can do is we can grab the entry point, so we get a timestamp of when this event actually occurred within the business process. And what we can do out of that is we can actually create a dictionary of additional terms within the beacon to collect. And so we'll give it a name, and then we can actually take the metadata that we're collecting through the workflow, either, once again, information that's being collected on a form when the user's initiating the workflow, maybe information that's being collected from a third-party service, a CRM, such as like Dynamics or Salesforce, and be able to populate those variables or item properties as data points to collect within our workflow. And so we can collect all these bits of data at the start of the stage, and then we can actually collect that data on the end part of the stage too, and check if there are any variances between the two. And as you can see here, depending on the contract type, we can go down multiple branches, and we can collapse bits of data, request for additional data, do build strings, update documents using Word services if we're using SharePoint on-prem, or we can even extend it further using document generation if we're using SharePoint online. And all the time we can be collecting any data that's required. We can even add additional conditional actions below here if we need to get additional review, such as contract review, if it's met a particular subset of information, and perform math operations against it too. Remember, once again, this is all drag and drop actions from the left-hand side, and you can build out these extensible workflows that can get as complex as they need to be for your current business situation. Taking a look at Office 365 and what SharePoint Online and Nintex Workflow can do for you, I'll drag over this section. Now, not all workflows have to be sequential. They can actually be non-sequential workflows that can lead to complex workflows. And so in this example, what we're looking at is a pretty much oversimplified press release. And we're using the concept of a state machine. And so within a state machine, I just drag the state machine action into the O365 Designer canvas. Once again, all done through the browser. I'll open up that canvas, and we can enter in the possible states of this workflow. So in this press release business process, we can have revisions by the author, managerial review, legal review, and then once all said and done, we can go and publish. And we've determined that regardless of how this workflow is enacted, we want to make sure that manager review is the first stage or the first branch of logic that this workflow will go down. And so you can enter in those stages, and then below you choose from a drop-down of the stages that you've created the first stage for it to execute. And this one is managerial review. So if we go and take a look, we can hop down managerial review, use assign a task action to get information from an author, from the manager, to get information from the manager to approve or reject it. And depending on the outcome of that approval, be it approved or rejected, we can actually send this workflow, this original instance of the workflow down a different path. So if it's approved, we can send it to legal. If it's rejected, we can send it over to the author for revisions, where the author has the ability to send it back to manager if he or she resubmits that document, or choose to end the review and exit the business process and the workflow altogether without executing any more approvals. What we'll notice over here, going just a little bit further down, is that we have legal review. Now, legal review, because they have more options available to them, we can further customize the task approval. So if I jump into this task, you'll notice that we don't have just approved or rejected. We also have more info, so you can add additional outcomes, because not all business processes are just approved or rejected. Sometimes you may require additional outcomes, and Nintex makes it very easy for you to go and add that information and those options into your workflow. So after all is said and done, if legal approves it, we'll hop over to publishing. And so publishing right now in this business process, all we have is just the ability to go and send out an email to start the publishing process to maybe our publisher. What if we wanted to extend this and use additional connectors within our workflow? Maybe we want to go and send out a Yammer message to our employees on Yammer. So Nintex up top, before I even go into actions, up top in Office 365, we've got the store. And so if I click on that, you'll actually see a whole host of actions that you can connect to, such as DocuSign, Box, LinkedIn, OneDrive, and Salesforce. And so if you want to connect to any of these, you would just click on that area. And then I'm already subscribed to it, but you would choose to subscribe to these actions. And so you'll be given a subset of actions within the action pack to use and integrate within your business process. And so I'll get out of here. But what I want to do is bring something like Yammer into this workflow. And so I already subscribed to these actions, but what I can do at that point is I can say, okay, cool, let me go ahead and create a Yammer message and send this out to maybe our marketing department and let them know, like, hey, we've got a new PR campaign. Please use these materials. It's gone through various chains of approval, all documented, all audited, because we've collected timestamps on the auditing and the response from those parties, these are signees in the task. And maybe we want to take it one step further and let everyone know, and we can actually send out a tweet. And so what we're able to do is then extend this business process outside the scope of SharePoint or SharePoint Online and use these third-party services simply by subscribing to the actions if we're in SharePoint Online, using the catalog that's available to you, or using the host of actions available within the connectors branch of the actions pane in the Workflow Designer canvas. And so that's not all. We've also got additional extensibility within the Nintex Workflow platform. I'll hop back into our on-premise solution, show this off too. What if you wanted to connect to data in a SQL backend and use that within your workflow? Fair enough. We have the execute SQL action, which is once again easily enough, just drag and drop onto the designer canvas to grab data from multiple backends. Or we've got the call web service or web request actions too. If you've got an exposed API that you want to go and grab data and use that data to direct your business process, or just to collect it during the process, you're able to do that within Nintex Workflow. And so what's great about is having these additional actions available to you is that you can use this data to report against Hawkeye. And so Hawkeye is the tool that uses those beacons, and it consumes those data, those dictionary of data that you've created within your beacons to build off a dashboard for you. And so looking at Nintex Hawkeye, what you can do is you can take a look at two different types of Lens instances. And so one is usage. The other one is going to be process intelligence. And so usage gives you that ROI and that consumption of workflows within your environment. And when I say environment, we expand it much further, so you can collect data from multiple farms, and they don't have to be just on-prem. They can be SharePoint 2010, 2013, 2016, multiple farms, and SharePoint Online and Nintex Workflow Cloud. So you're able to go and collect the data from multiple environments and show that for visualization and consumption. And so using this usage dashboard, we're able to go and take a look at published workflows, published activity, workflows by location, complexity and type, and of course the always important ROI summary, which will give you an idea of how that workflow investment, that Nintex workflow investment that you've made is paying off for you. And it's especially beneficial in chargeback systems too, where you can take a look at how beneficial that individual business process is for you. So that's great. We can take a look at all the data that's rolled up for us and see how Nintex workflow is consumed and used. But what about those individual processes? What about the ones where we actually placed beacons in to collect data? How do we represent that, and how do we look at that data? Well, let's go into the expense claim process. And so this is the process intelligence lens instance. And so you're able to use that data. It's collected within the beacon and shot up in a OData source. And so you can use tools like Tableau or Power BI to build these dashboards. And you can see one that we've built. And so this is expense claims, where we can take a look at information such as the category that has been claimed on the expense, flights, meals, software subscription, and whatnot. Take a look at the overall costs associated with those particular categories, the guilty parties in those departments that are actually making those expense claims. But one that I'm really, really interested in too is performance. So if we hop over to the performance tab, we can say, hey, we built out this business process with an expectation that we wanted to have claim approvals committed within 5 days end to end. Well, unfortunately, looking at the data rolled up, we haven't met that claim. And so what we can do is take a look further down here and say, oh, look, manager approvals are eating up almost the entirety of that 5-day claim, leaving very little time for executive approval and for the payment days of whatever system we're using to actually cut the checks for our end users. So you're able to address these bottlenecks in the business process and then identify what can be done to rectify whatever issue you may be seeing. And in these business processes too, these individual ones, we also have the ability to build an ROI. So once again, in that chargeback model, this will be key into delivering an effective business solution that saves time and money for your end users and your organization as a whole. And so all that information can be hosted using Power BI or Tableau. Once again, it's all an OData source that's delivered to you to build out these dashboards. So one of the key aspects too is the extensibility to your end users and providing them a method, an efficient method for actually entering that data in, that metadata that they're working with. So if we take a look at one of the key aspects, it's forms. Right, so being able to build out a proper form for your end user is going to be key. And so in SharePoint, we've all seen out-of-the-box forms, such as this one for this leave request. And yeah, you can put information in it, but it's not dynamic. It's not conditionally based for requirements. It's either a required field or it's not a required field. And we're showing all the columns over here. What if we were able to easily build out a more efficient form for our end users to go ahead and say, hey, I only want to show off X, Y, and Z portion of my form, and also this field is only required if you entered in this value into the form. Well, that can be done within Nintex. And so once again, within the browser, instead of going to the Workflow Designer, we're going to go into the Nintex Forms Designer. And so within the Nintex Forms Designer, it's going to be a little bit different than what you saw within the Workflow Designer. In the Workflow Designer, you got this blank canvas, and you're able to go and start building out your business process against it. Well, Forms actually goes and takes a look at the construct of your list, so the columns, the data types that you're collecting, those required columns, and it gives you the ability to extend that even further by building out a template at first for you. So you can see that right now. On the left-hand side is a whole host of additional controls that you can add onto your form. And what's great about this is I'll click on this control, this multi-line text box, and it's all drag and drop just like you've come to expect with Nintex Workflow. If I wanted to take something like geolocation and add that on my form, just simply go and grab that action and place, or control, and place that within the form. Just like Workflow for double-clicking to configure objects on the page, you can do that with Forms. Double-click on the control, and it will bring up your control settings box where you're able to go and place in whatever configuration settings you need. Now, one of the great parts about Nintex Forms is, once again, not to be limited by the information that you can place into your form. The ability to connect to additional data sources is key, and so what I will do is show you some of the really great actions that you can use to extend your forms, and such as SQL request and web request. And so here's the key functionality. If you've used forms before and SharePoint, you may be accustomed to the concept of cascading dropdown, so being able to get filtered results on a control based on the output of a different control on the form. And well, that not only applies to list lookup control on Nintex forms, but that concept also extends to SQL and web request, because extensibility is the name of the game here. So what I'll do is I'll double click on the web request control. And what you can do is you can see you can build out the service URL. So if you're building out the service URL for maybe a GET request and you want to have certain filter parameters on that URL, that's easy enough, because what you can do is click on this reference guide and you'll be able to use named controls. So at runtime, the value of these controls can be used to help build that dynamic output from the control. What's even more powerful is the ability to do that from information on a SQL backend. So what I'll do is I'll open up the SQL request control settings, and you can see where we can connect to a particular server, the database, and choose the query type. So not only are we limited to just running a SQL query, but we also have stored procedures. And in that, we can add the parameters, and we can actually do a name value pair, and that value that goes against that stored procedure, once again, can be named controls. The same thing goes for that actual SQL query that you may run. And all that can be tested within the control itself. You don't even actually have to go and publish the form to make sure that connection works. It saves you a ton of time and allows you to quickly and easily vet that form out before going ahead and publishing it. So on top of these two controls, being able to build that conditionally dynamic form is important too. So how does Nintex Forms allow you to do that? Well, the use of rules and a rules engine baked into it. And so up top, we've got a rules button with a rules panel that'll come up on the right-hand side. And so if you click on a control, you can choose to add a rule. So I'll add a rule, and you give that rule a name. Below that is the rule type, and I can choose either formatting or validation. So the difference between these two rule types is formatting allows you to disable, enable, hide, or show particular controls on your form depending on the outcome of other controls. So some condition that you've built in to the form logic. And validation takes your form requirements and extends it even further by allowing you to create the validation logic on particular forms. And within here, you would just open up the formula builder. You can grab information such as, the mode that the form is in, current time, current user, name controls to use information at runtime, or even use runtime functions to massage that data or to change the output of that data to meet whatever those requirements are. And so you're able to build in those various rule types in your form and give a more dynamic use or user experience for those that are entering information on the form. Now, it would be great too if we had additional extensibility for branding, or if we wanted to include additional libraries, JavaScript libraries into our form, and Nintex gives you that ability too. So up top in settings, what we can do is we can then have multiple ways to add this information in. So under custom CSS, we're able to go and add CSS styles within here, so we can give our own classes and write that against the form and apply those classes to individual controls. We can write our own custom JavaScript and embed that within the Nintex form, or if we already have built out style sheets and libraries that we wish to connect to in our Nintex form, under the advanced section, you'll see we have custom CSS includes and custom JavaScript includes, and so you can actually link out to those additional resources to be consumed by your form and then execute once the form runs. And so that allows you to take these forms even further. Now, all this is just showing you a desktop layout of this form, and more users than not are not going to be sitting at a computer. You've got end users out in the field, and they need to enter that information in different types of formats. And so Nintex makes that very easy too by allowing you to build out multiple layouts of that form. And so up top, under the layout section, you'll see we've got smartphone, Nintex mobile phone, Nintex mobile tablet. And then if I click under other devices, you'll see a whole host of other ones too, such as iPad, Android, iPhone, and Windows Phone. And so what's the difference here? I see iPad twice. I see it under iPad over here, and iPad with Nintex mobile is a prefix for it. Well, the difference here is that iPad and any of these layouts without a Nintex Mobile 4 prefix to it allow you to build a form that would be consumed on the browser on that device. So if I want to build out a form that users that are connected to data, be it through Wi-Fi or through their cellular data service, they'll be able to go and load up a version of that form. So I'll click on iPhone, and we'll be presented with an iPhone layout of that form. And maybe our end users don't have the ability to connect to forms in that manner. Maybe we need to be able to give them offline availability of those forms, because the world isn't that easy. People are in places that don't have data connectivity, so let's make that easy too. So once again, under other devices, you see these Nintex mobile layouts. And so if I wanted to build out a layout for the Nintex mobile application, I can do that. And so the Nintex mobile application is an app that's installed on your device natively. So it can actually be downloaded from the store for whatever OS you're running, so iTunes, Google Play, or the Windows Store. And you'll be able to access those forms. So if I wanted to make this form accessible to people that have the Nintex mobile application on their iPads, I would click on Nintex Mobile for iPad, and you'll see here's the new layout that we're using on here. And this is great, but that form is going to have Nintex forms emblazoned upon it all throughout the app too. Maybe we want to make that a little bit more extensible and give better branding and a better user experience there. And that's where items such as Nintex App Studio come into play. And so Nintex App Studio allows you to build out a customized app for your end users to consume Nintex forms that you've built to kick off Nintex workflows too. And so in this designer, it's all done through the browser. I'll click on Create New App. And there's 4 really simple steps that you got to go through in the process of building out this app, such as general information, connections, theme, and then additional content if you wish to customize a little bit further. So you can give the app a name, a description, a URL scheme if you wish to use deep linking in there and allow users to quickly open up the app and point to a particular form, and even predefine data through either clicking on a link or scanning a QR code. And then after that, you can choose platforms such as Android, iOS, Windows, or Windows Phone. After you made your decisions here, you can go over to connections. And so this is where you can point it to that particular environment that you wish to consume forms from. And you can choose corporate. So if you're going to go to your SharePoint on-prem environments, you can choose O365. So for Office 365, you have them authenticate through that. Or Nintex Workflow Cloud if you've got forms that are consumed through Nintex Workflow Cloud to kick off those workflows. And even though I'd love you to have Nintex App Studio emblazoned upon all of this, you've got the option to add whatever images you want, so long as they follow in these sizes, so 13 by 1300, 200 and so on, 200 and 200 by so on. And then below we've got the color scheme. So you can use the Nintex default or any of these ones that we've provided for you. And as you click on them, you'll actually see the layout change on the right-hand side. Or you can use the ability to create your own custom theme, and you'll not only have a color picker, but you can also use hex codes. So if your branding department requires you to build an app that looks a certain way, feel free to do it that way too. So after you've gone and chosen that custom theme, the next step is content. And so within content, you can see we've got different menu items. So these are the different locations within Nintex Mobile and App Studio. And so because tasks is at top of this form, what we're doing here is we're requiring tasks to be the first section that opens up. Maybe we don't want that. We want forms to open up first when our users open up the application. So what I do at that point is just move forms to the top, and so that top section is now going to be the one that your end users will go into. And so I can actually edit these sections or delete them if required. The only one you can't do is settings, because you need to be able to have access to that too. But what's great about this is in the Nintex form sections and task 2 is the ability to actually define a scope of forms that are used within the application. And so if you've got maybe C-level that doesn't need access to all the Nintex mobile enabled forms, you want to give them maybe 5 daily drivers that are available to them, you can filter out those available forms that will be viewed on here. And so you can click on Add Filter, decide that you want to only show listed forms, and then after you've created that form within your environment, you'll export that form XML, click on Upload, and then upload that form XML into the Forms panel over here, and then only those forms listed will be shown on that mobile device in the App Studio. So you're going to reduce the amount of scrolling that your end users have to go through to access those forms and give them their 5 daily drivers, or however many forms you wish to give them. Now that's not all. You've also got the ability to build out additional content on here too, such as maybe this is a form that's used by our external field engineers, and there's some PDF content that we want to make sure is available to them. So up top, we've got this little additional icon over here. Click on that. You can choose the icons. Maybe we want to use a document here and say additional documents on machines, to give them some training material, and you can choose content, and then after that you would click on add, and you can actually include a PDF file, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, even custom HTML into this mobile application, and give them even more information to consume on that mobile app than just those Nintex forms that you've created. So tons of extensibility, the ability to include additional content, and really give them a full-featured app that they can use and interact with different workflows and business solutions within just that mobile application, all with being away from their desk. And so once you're done adding that additional content in there, just click on Save and Build and give yourself about 15-20 minutes, depends on the number of operating systems that you selected, to build out the application. And then from there, you'll just go ahead and have 2 different manners of delivering those apps out to your end users. Now, one is going to be either through MDM that you've got, and the other one is going to be using something such as a distribution list that's built in here. So you can actually set the users that are going to receive this application. They'll receive an email with a link to the executable. They'll install it on their mobile device, put in their credentials to log into the device, and then they'll have all those assets available to them to continue work. So as you can see, with the ability to quickly build out complex solutions using Nintex Workflow, the ability to report on that data that you're working with within those business solutions using Nintex Hawkeye, and the ability to give out efficient and easy to use forms and data entry points using Nintex Forms, and including mobile into that scenario with a customized app using Nintex App Studio, you're giving your end users the ability to do more from more places and to connect to more services, all by using the Nintex platform.
Sure. And again, you think of questions afterwards, just send us an email. Happy to do one-on-one demonstrations, discuss any of the particular thoughts and uses you have. It's a big old stack, a lot of stuff we can continue to show you, and as always, we appreciate your time. And look forward to seeing you next time, and hope you have interest in Nintex. We really do think it's the best product in the market right now, so I hope you feel as well. All right, thank you, Sean. Thanks, Rick. Thank you, everyone.